Canada pays good attention to children and their quality of life. Hence, one of the many reasons a lot of migrants seek solace in its system. However, the issue of child welfare system can be tricky too, especially if one does not understand how it works and how the system operates. And to shed more light and sight on this, I have in the studio Ibironke Fagunwa, a parent and a community member who is quite knowledgeable when it comes to child welfare here in Nova Scotia. It's good to have you in our studio today.
Thank you for having me, Promise.
Awesome. And today's episode to our viewers, like anything else, is important to parents in the African community. And that's why we consider this a good privilege to talk about child welfare system. Like I said, it's so important to us to talk about child welfare. And so let's begin by understanding what is the child welfare like here in Nova Scotia and how can our viewers best understand it?
The child welfare system in Nova Scotia. I would start by saying that when people think about the child welfare system, a lot of immigrants panic when they get involved because they think that the aim of the child welfare system is to separate families, more like taking the children from their parents and getting them into the system. And that is not what the child welfare system it's all about.
Mhm.
It will interest a lot of people to know that the aim of the child welfare system is to keep families together, to support the parents in places where they are struggling parenting, or in places where they're struggling in providing the necessary amenities for their children. And a lot of immigrants does not even know that the child welfare system exists, and because a lot of people come from a place where you have like culture, values, beliefs that are different from what we have here in Nova Scotia. These are the things that get people drawn into the child welfare system here.
I agree with you, where a lot of people, especially from the African side of things, they are used to the community thing and
Yeah.
ways of doing things. So, in your opinion, and broadly speaking, why do you think government is particularly interested in the child's welfare? And what do you think parents are missing in the mix of all this?
So the government is looking at keeping the children from harm's way.
Good.
The priority of the government is providing adequate and quality life for the kids and keeping them safe at all times. The government will be interested in the kind of environment the kids are being brought up.
Wow.
Are they well provided for? Do they have access to, you know, clothing, shelter, food? Are they like in an environment where domestic violence is going on or the kids are being abused? So those are the things the government will look at when the children are in the home or when a child is in the home. The priority is for the or the children to be protected, depending on if it's a child or children that are in the home.
Right. Let's drill down a little bit to some of those triggers, like you did mention, are the children in the harm's way, or do they have the right environment to live in? What are other things that trigger this government intervention when they feel children are not safe enough?
I want to talk about safe. Let's talk
Okay.
about what makes the children safe or what makes the children unsafe in the home.
Okay.
Now, if a child is in an environment where there's a lot of violence going on, that child is being exposed to what we call emotional harm and violence. That violence going on is going to impact on the cognitive development and functioning of that child.
All right.
At that point, the government will be interested. And if a child is a victim of abuse, abuse can be in different form. It could be sexual abuse, it could be emotional abuse, it could be physical abuse, and it could be what we call excessive discipline.
Okay.
So then at that point, a child is deemed unsafe in the home. That child needs protection. Now, I would like to talk about what we call excessive discipline.
All right.
A lot of immigrants comes from a culture where there's nothing wrong in hitting a child.
Okay.
Now, I will say hit, but most people of African descent will say beat. But here we will use the word hit. Like in Africa, it is spare the rod. Is it spare? What's
And
the
spoil the
and
child.
spoil the child?
Yeah. So they go for the spanks
So they
and
go for you're not. It is you're not allowed to span or
right.
hit a child.
Right.
Right? That child will be to be deemed as undergoing emotional abuse, and there's excessive discipline going on in the home.
Can I just jump in there?
Mm-hmm.
But you see, parents are sometimes in that dilemma. They've spoken to this child, they've taken things away to discipline a child, and they're kind of pushed, literally pushed to do this thing. We condemn all of that. It's inhuman to beat a child. But what would you recommend to parents to do who thought or who think that they've explored all other options to put the child in a straight way? What would you recommend to them?
For most people, people are used to hitting a child as a way of correction. But most time we say set rules for the child and then follow up with the consequences when those rules are broken. I'll give you an example. When you tell a child, every time you eat, don't leave your cup on the table. Make sure you wash it, whether you're putting it in the dishwasher or washing it. And you tell the child that if you don't do that, I'm going to take your maybe something they like, your favorite toy, or I'm going to reduce your screen time. Now, if a child does not do that, some parents might just take the cup away from them. They are not following up with the consequences when that rule is broken, right? Once you tell a child, once you do this, I'm going to do this, ensure that once the child do that, you're going to do that. It doesn't matter if the child is yelling or screaming. Over time, they're going to get used to the fact that if I break this rule, there's going to be a consequence for me breaking that rule, right? So most times when we come from other places, when we are migrants, right, we should try to understand what are the rules for parenting a child in the community that I am in. Ignorance is not applicable to the law.
Yeah, it's not an excuse.
It's not an excuse.
But you see, I think, just like you rightly said,
Mhm.
as a parent, you should know how to manage these kids and
Mhm.
stuff. Do we have areas like counseling, uh, institutions of government that can help in event where the parents are feeling frustrated with this? Because don't forget, there are a lot of influences here
Mhm.
from peers and so on. What will you recommend that they do, parents in this
I would
case?
say to parents that when you are in an environment,
Right.
Canada is very rich. You should learn what are the resources that are in my community that can help in my parenting journey.
Right.
In every community, there's what we call the Family Resource Center.
Okay.
If you go online and you type about parenting, a lot of support and resources that are actually free will
Awesome.
come up. You can meet with other parents that have had similar experiences from you,
Right.
and you can learn from them. You can also have what could be called support workers,
Right.
that can work with you as well, or online virtual classes,
Yeah.
that you can go through that can help you, parenting a child that might be termed as, what is called stubborn. And on the flip side as well, some kids might need diagnosis.
Okay.
They might be hyper or they might not be able to focus because they have a condition.
Okay.
But because, sometimes a lot of things come into play for us. Religion might come into play, our culture might come into play. We don't want to face reality that my child is dealing with this and they need help, right? We take everything as spiritual. This cannot happen to me, you know. And then because of this, we refuse diagnosis and that child cannot be helped. But if a child is like really struggling, it can't focus in school, for example, is very hyper. When you have the right diagnosis and is registered in school and the school knows, there is an aspect of the school that can provide the necessary support and services for that child, and the government is going to fund it, right? And so, we just need to understand that all these resources and support are available in our community, and then we can access them without having to pay anything for them.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think that point is abundantly made that they can resort to organizations,
Yeah.
department for help. But a situation where this happens, I believe that you meet a lot of people who ask the question, what do I do when I get that phone call that your child is with us? And I know that you're quite knowledgeable in this area, not speaking for any
Okay.
specific organization or department. What do you say to them?
So you won't get a call that your child is with us. You might
Oh,
get a
okay.
call that I just spoke to your child and I'd like to meet with you. That's the kind of call that
Right.
we
So,
get.
what's usually the follow up you think that government agencies would do after that call that your child has been spoken to?
So there's what we call an investigation.
Okay.
So if there's a referral concern concerning a child and a child has been spoken to, it could be concerning anything. I don't know. Okay, I would like to use one that is very prominent with um, immigrants, and that is excessive discipline.
Mm-hmm.
If a child has reported in the school, for instance, that is being hit by the parents at home, and the child has been interviewed, and there are bruises on him, or he's been able to tell, like, give very accurate description of what has been happening to him in the home, and you get a call. I don't think there's any need to panic or to be hostile or to try to push back so much or to go defensive.
Okay.
They've spoken to the child already and you don't know what he said, so or they've said. So the proper thing for you is to meet with the worker that has made this call, and then there's nothing, there's no, you won't be judged. I mean, if you know that this has happened, you could say yes. Parents are actually frustrated
Yeah.
when they don't know what to do. If you know that you eat a child and you have bruises, you can own up to it.
Okay.
That way, you will get appropriate support,
Okay.
the resources that you need to help that child. And by talking, if they decide that something is going on with the child, they could ask you, have you diagnosed this child? I know for a lot of African parents, it's difficult to say that you want to diagnose your child. It might look as if you're trying to label a child,
Yeah.
but something might be going on with that child that you need help with. So it is better for you to get your help at that point and contain it than
Right.
for you to shy away from what is actually going on
Yeah.
with the child. So if you get a call, be as honest as you can.
Yeah.
If you are asked for collateral, people that can talk about your parenting skills, provide them. Accommodate who has been calling you. It could be, they will talk to the mom, they will talk to the dad, they can talk to your neighbors as well. So in this case, it might be good to have very good neighbors and good friends,
I agree with you, which
And then,
means those calls can actually come from
yeah,
within, right?
yeah, it could be, the cause can be from a concerned
Yeah.
neighbors
Neighbor.
as
Okay.
well, or can come from anybody,
Right.
and it can be anonymous. You can't hold anybody by the jugular and say that you did this to me. No.
Right. Let's talk about the kids themselves. They need to also understand the importance of avoiding all this, because I know that our kids, they can hear us, they can feel us, and they can understand even our circumstances. What do you say to those children who give themselves out to that influence that brings disharmony at home?
um you see, most kids are innocent, right? And if anybody's going to talk to a child, they are trained. They're not going to ask those kids direct questions,
Right.
right? And if a child is going through a circumstance and you speak to him, he's going to tell you what is happening to him. Sometimes most kids are happy because they're in the system. They know that they're going to get help. Now, I will say this again and again, that the child welfare system, the aim of the child welfare system is not to take kids or
It's
to
not to
take
separate
children. It's not to separate families.
Okay.
All right. Kids or children are only taken where the situation is deemed irreparable.
Okay.
And most times, kids can go into foster home so that parents can deal with their situation and then everybody can come back together. Separation can come for the family so that everybody can get their acts together.
Yeah.
And then everybody comes back together and they're being supported, because whatever risk that has been identified would have been mitigated at that point in time.
Okay.
And hopefully, and then there is a lot of success stories as well. So, most times kids can't be blamed for what is happening in the home.
Right. My question
Right.
with your own case, not to blame the kids, but I understand that no matter how beautiful these foster homes or these centers are, they can never be the same thing as your home and where your family is. But they also need to understand they don't get excessively excited that, oh, I'm going to go away from this, my strict parents,
Mm-hmm.
and they're making that call, or they're saying stuff back in school that sometimes
Mm-hmm.
might not be as true as it sounds. Like you say, they are excited to even move, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to tell them?
So I want to answer that question with peer pressure.
Okay.
All right. Sometimes most migrant grades are, how do I say, like, they're not allowed to do certain things that they see their friends doing. And a lot of these kids are growing up in the system.
All right.
They don't have the kind of background or upbringing that their parents have.
Mm-hmm.
And most times, parents do not have time to like explain to a child, oh, why can't I go out? You cannot go out. Right? You need to break down to these children. I am telling you, you cannot have this biro or this pen because it's going to hurt you.
Right.
You need to break it down for these kids. You can't, we are in an environment where these kids have access to information. They're going to have a child that is growing up in this system. We have more access to information than you, the parent that came from, another background.
Okay.
So they know their rights before you begin to learn what their rights are. So if a child says to you, I want to go out, and you're saying no, they don't understand why you are saying no. Because they see, I'm just using go out, I'm just using the word go out.
Okay.
If you are preventing a child to do what he sees his peers doing and you're saying no, they might probably not understand why they are being deprived from doing what their friends are doing.
Okay.
And most times kids become rebellious.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So when a child is in middle school, 12, 13, you go out, you can't really prevent them from doing anything. But they don't really understand that when the chiefs are down and they go into foster home,
Exactly.
that
That's
is
the
when
point.
the reality comes in
Right.
for a lot of them. But, it's two ways. It's either they learn or they've gone too far to be able to trace their steps back.
So I would safely say that parents need to be involved in the lives of their children, to know their friends, know their influences. And I think that will help to save. Is that you share the same thoughts?
You cannot overemphasize the importance of the presence of the parents
Right.
in their child's life.
Right.
It is highly important. I know a lot of us are like hard workers because if you have a teenage son or daughter, you probably might not be able to drop them in school. You probably might not be able to know who their friends are.
Yeah.
But you should always create that family time,
Right.
regardless of how many children you have.
Family time. I think it's
Yes.
very important. But you are a mother,
Mm-hmm.
a parent as
Mm-hmm.
well. And there's a saying, an African proverb, that it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
What do you think is the role of community members in this case, who probably see the kids wandering around and they are not able to say to their parents, I'm seeing your child with this group of kids.
So
Why don't you talk to them? What would you say to them, real quick?
unfortunately, the system we have acculturated into the system in so much that we can't really say to parents, this is what I see your kids doing.
Okay.
This is a system where everybody is minding their business and nurturing and trying to nurture their child. It's more like to your tent, to everyone.
But does that help in any way?
That is not helping anybody.
Yeah. So, but because I think it can be done safely without necessarily looking like someone who is interested in the family affairs. But I mean, I see a child should be in school somewhere else, probably smoking something. I should be able to say to the parent, I saw this. You might want to ask questions. Right?
If you have a relationship with the parent,
Yeah.
and you know that they're not going to take it, with an offense, yes, you can.
Why not, right? On a final note,
You can.
you've said so much, and I know you have more to say. What would be your final thought to our community, the African community in this case, with regards to how the system, in 3 seconds?
Well, it is very important that we understand the system where we are.
Right.
And I want to say this quickly.
Okay.
I know that one thing that a lot of people are confused about is, leaving kids at home by themselves, like when they are 12.
Okay.
I want you to know that there's no law in Nova Scotia that tells you that once you have the first aid training, you can leave your child home at 12.
No law that supports that?
There's no Nova. Look at the child Services Act of 1994, Nova Scotia. It
Okay.
doesn't give an age where you can leave a child
Oh, okay.
owned by yourself. If you leave your child owned by yourself, it is your responsibility. God forbid anything happens, you have to answer to the law.
Yeah.
But
Gotcha.
so that is, I know there are a lot of trainings going on, and you feel that if you have this certificate, yes, you are leaving that child to be responsible for him or herself, not
Yeah.
for like an 8-year-old or a 6-year-old or for a younger sibling. No.
Okay.
I mean, it's safe when you're doing it and nothing happens, but God forbid anything like somebody, stranger knocks at the door, or a fire breaks down, or there's a fire next door, and they're evacuating everybody, and they realize that this child is all alone by
Alone.
themselves, then you're absolutely responsible. That's number one. Number two, as you know, when we are immigrants, we have culture, we have values, we have beliefs, sometimes we have our spirituality.
Right.
I cannot overemphasize the importance of using your values, your beliefs to bring up your child in this environment.
Right.
I know that this environment we are is westernized,
Right.
right? But you cannot take away the place of Afrocentricity in parenting your child. It will help us a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The Western world is looking at us and cherishing our values. And then we are looking at ourselves and knocking those values away.
Yeah.
So that has helped me a lot. I have used my background, I have used my values, I have used my beliefs to parent my child or my children, and I speak for myself. And I think I've had friends as well here that did it, and I think it's something we should imbibe, and it will help everybody.
That's a good place to leave it. Thank you so much, Bironke,
Thank
for
you.
coming to our show.
Thank you for having me.
That was Ibironke Fagunwa. If you would like to know more, you can reach out to us. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you have not already done so, to get updates on happenings in the African communities here in Nova Scotia. Till I come your way again, I am Promise Okoy. Take care. See you soon.